Welcome, guys, to the Contech Onsite podcast. Super excited to host today Matthew Cordova. Matthew, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Dude, it's a pleasure. So maybe we always start off the podcast really asking to learn more about, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe about also Hermanson and what you're doing there.
Yeah. So my name is Matt Cordova. I'm the Director of Construction Technology here at Hermanson. Been in this role for a couple years now. Started, doing different things with technology, working my way up to my current position, right? Always had a hand in processes and workflows for our VDC department and how we draw. And one of the big moves we did a few years ago was go from AutoCAD to Revit, and which kind of revamped everything that we did to where we are now. And just pushing the envelope, adding new technologies to get leaner and faster, and with what we do. So, and then as far as Hermanson goes, we specialize in plumbing, piping, and sheet metal. We do integrated design to plan and spec type jobs. We run MEP coordination for a lot of our clients, and we specialize in offices, hospitals, residential high-rise towers, and life science buildings specifically. So that's a little bit about us and myself.
Okay, great. Yeah, you're just sharing about how you did like a pivot or a transition from AutoCAD to Revit. And I'm sure that's going to be very exciting to learn more about it, and really what goes into that, because I'm sure it's a pretty big feat to be able to do in a construction company. So first of all, kudos, and then really let's dive in a little bit also about how did you get to what you're doing today, and maybe you could share a bit of the projects that you're involved in, and kind of just kind of like a broad overview of so we could get a good understanding, or people could relate to you from what they're up to.
Yeah, so, it was kind of an interesting approach to where I'm at today. It really was a position that was created and needed once technology and all these new platforms started, culminating, coming together. We needed to orchestrate that in a way where we can get everybody pointed in one direction, right? There's so many platforms out there, and there's so many pockets and so many departments within a company like ours, and probably everybody's. But we have to structure that a little bit. And my main focus is construction technology. So it really, it started, my path here started I was a part of our VDC department, detailing. I specialize in sheet metal myself. I'm a journeyman sheet metal worker by trade. Took a lot of classes to get where I'm at. Like I said, we started in AutoCAD and things like that, and started evolving into Revit when the industry started going that direction. It's almost hard to put into words, right? The things that I was doing within the department, other people started latching on and saying, "Hey, can you show us how to do it that way too?" Just smaller tasks, not like this whole company-wide change. It started working, that way through that process. And the big move that we did was that kind of pushed me this direction was the switch from AutoCAD to Revit and things like that. A move like that is everything we did for the last 20 years was AutoCAD based. Like I say, I talk about process and workflows all the time. Everything was AutoCAD based. So now we're starting to lean towards Revit. And at the same time, cloud technologies, right? We sat at the table if we're going to make the shift to Revit, and me and a team of people at Hermanson took this on. We also decided that we're going to leverage that cloud-based platform in BIM 360. That way, everybody can have access to the model regardless of what you're doing. We didn't want to host it on our servers, our IT group. We were just shifting to SharePoint and pushing everything to the cloud. We didn't really want to be a server-based company. So that was a big move. And part of that is every new project moving forward, we're going to do it in Revit. But before you can get all that, you need roots, right? So that's where I kind of developed those workflows within Revit, our project browser, how we control our views, how we control our sheets, how we organize all of that stuff. It was a big undertaking. Your text sizes, how you want your grids to always show up, how you want your dimensions to always show up, things like that. Those are company standards that we had to lock down before we pushed through. Once we locked down, we started saying every new project moving forward is going to be hosted in Revit. And not only that, but we're going to host it on the BIM 360 platform to keep it cloud-based. Again, that's just one minute task, right? We have a whole department of, 40 people over here who aren't comfortable in Revit or who have never drawn in Revit. So part of that is training, teaching. We sent, pockets of our department at a time. When I mentioned that we started shifting over, at a project level, that project team, guess what? You're going to get sent to Revit classes. We had, some partners that we signed up with who were hosting classes, and we'd send them to Seattle for a few weeks and get the roots in place, right? And I don't know if I'm going too far with all this, but it was also very important to me that when we're doing our work as a mechanical contractor, I do not want to leverage third-party apps to force us to use them to get our job done. I really felt like it was incredibly important to teach and to train our guys to use out-of-the-box Revit and develop the tools that Revit has in place, and then start adding on to that. Like, this app will make our workflow easier, but we have to know how to do it without it. I do not want to be, held hostage by a platform. If we don't have it, we can't get our job done. That's not how Hermanson was going to run. That's not how I was going to push it. So, so that's kind of how we made that transition from AutoCAD to Revit. We can go more and more into the weeds with all of that, but one of the big things that came out of it, this was like a year before COVID hit, right? So we just luckily started leveraging that cloud-based technology, because once COVID hit, everybody had to stay home, right? But now they had access to the model, no different than they did in the office. They had at home as well. That's very important. I call it luck, just because we made the transition. We always had VPNs. You can access, DWGs through a VPN. It's just not as smooth. There's disconnects and things like that. It does work though. It does work. But going to a cloud-based platform made it that much easier, because we're on the cloud, whether we're here or at home. You just need an internet connection. You can function like normal. So very grateful that we started making that transition about a year before COVID hit.
That's great. I think it's super interesting, because you touch upon a lot of points, and I think from where how you're describing it, there's really a clear kind of, I don't know what, even map or kind of describing the different stages, right, of what it went through. You're starting off, and it's also pretty amazing that you guys had a bit of a grassroots movement within the company. People are seeing you doing something differently, and you have curious enough, peers and people in the business that are looking up and say, whoa, what did you just do? That's a curiosity. Not all companies have that privilege, so that reflects on the culture that you guys have at Hermanson, but and that's a very positive and unique. I think it's relatively unique. What happened? Maybe I have a bunch of questions. I don't want to run to all different directions, but what was it like working with the people who weren't that curious, and you're talking about like training and teaching people the basics before reliance on other apps and other products. How is it getting those other people, the people aren't the curious people in particular, aligned with that vision and getting a buy-in?
So that's a great question. You get a lot of grumbles, right? Like, you have a movement, and I'm talking about one pocket, right? We're going to eventually start talking about project management and all these other platforms that we've been developing. But people that it starts with, like you said, a vision, but also this is what we're going to do, guys. Like, I need you to understand this is the direction that Hermanson is going, or any company is going, and it's either you're going to learn it and master it, or you're going to get dusted. You have to. This isn't a choice. This isn't a bargaining tool. The industry was going to Revit. How we communicate with engineers and architects as a subcontractor, to me, and to our team, was extremely important that we were in the same platform that 90% of those users are in. So, at least in our area, that's what we're using. So, anytime that there's change, there's always going to be grumbles. I see it, but really, it's about adapting and improving, and through that teaching process, why this is a little bit better, and getting people on board that way. Another big part of getting people on board with new technologies and things like that, I feel, is inclusion, right? So if let's say I get a guy who's like, I'm not, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? I have one-on-ones with them all the time and say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. I'm going to teach you this process. How can we make it better? Ask the end user how we can make it better. Now they feel more included and also invested that they're helping develop the same technology the company is doing. So that's one way I like to attack it, whether it's with our VDC team, project management, our field guys, our shop guys. There's so much technology here now, and how we communicate with each department. And each department always has people like what you're saying. And it's just getting them and teaching them and getting them to understand this is why we're making the change, but also we are going this way, so you have to go this way, but also just how can we make it better? Just communicating that way with the people.
So the first thing is that, if I understood correctly, right, you're describing that you just have to kind of help them understand the daunting reality. If it's daunting, the industry is changing, there's a shift. We all have to understand that and change, and it's not a matter of privilege, it's a matter of this is what needs to happen. Absolutely. And then the second component of it was really kind of aligning them with the purpose, in terms of, okay, like, we're doing a shift, will you help us kind of like pioneer this change, this transition,
Mm-hmm.
Getting a little bit buy-in also on one-on-one communications, or saying what the challenges are, and then also really giving them those tools that they need to feel like, that they have how to deal with it and how to cope with the change that's going on.
Right. And there's different pockets too. I don't know. So I was kind of more focused on our VDC team. Like, if I was to explain how we launched some of our field guys, we have a living dashboard now for delivery dates and things like that. They communicate with 3D models to start packaging and grouping parts and materials for BLMs and cut lists and things like that. That was a different tact, right? Different department, different group of people than our VDC. Same thing though, sitting with those guys at a table. This is it. You guys have never experienced any of this before, and you guys are now also not tech savvy, right? They're not comfortable with technology on our field side. Some of the younger guys are, definitely. We got studs here that are, but a lot of our seasoned older vets barely can turn a computer on. Now I'm asking them to literally plan, package, get delivery dates, funnel all of this stuff through the specific software. Same thing. It's a lot of one-on-one training. Like, I don't know how else to do it. I would have a team of guys if I could, and I got a great team of people here that help out. But any new foreman or any new person that is going to be using the technology in the field, now I'm talking just field guys, sit with them one-on-one and go through, this is what's expected, this is how it works, how can we make it better. You're going to see a common theme across all departments, is how can we make it better. Get those same people that need to use it also invested in the product, and that's how you can get buy-in. That's my tack there. And then now we also have a different group, right? The shop. Our shop 3 years ago didn't have computers in it. Now we have over 9 shop PCs and iPads floating around because they're working directly from the model as well. Same platform. Our shop equipment also communicates with all this different technology, right? It's not just going to magically happen. People need to be trained and understand how that happens. That's one of the hats that I wear as well. Now one-on-one training. Okay, now the field is requesting these parts and pieces. This is how now our shop needs to build it. Here's a beautiful delivery date. In that same package, here's a bill of materials. In that same package, we can send cut lists directly to our shop equipment, whether they're Tiger stocks or wax machines or whatever it be, MHA plasma cutters. Everybody is now going to a single location to get that done. And that is another part of technology, getting everybody all pointed the same direction. You got to get them trained, you got to get them happy with it, but they all got to be pointed one direction. Mm-hmm. So that's part of my role, right? Is finding those technologies out there that we're going to use, and then get buy-in, train it, master it, teach it, and function. Our entire operation functions this way. So this is how we get paid as far as fabrication. I know you can edit this. There's another portion of this, right? Where I don't know if you want me to say the actual technologies that we're using, but I just signed a 3-year contract for some of the cloud-based stuff that I was talking about. And I've always worked with our BDC, shop, and field. Now we have another fourth-headed monster in here, and that's our project management. So it's a different world there, getting them to use a similar platform. So it's 2 things. We have a fabrication platform, and then we have a document management platform. The field goes to the document for our sheets, prints, RFIs, all this different type of thing. But now getting buy-in from them, because that's a different world. That group, each one thinks they're their own little mini CEO, right? We're all here to be on the same team, but each one has a very, specific way that they like to do things. So on, implementing technology on that, needed some executive backup, and we had a great team of people put together to attack it as a group. Now I'm going to speak in modules. There's different parts to this software, and we had dedicated teams on the project management side focus on each and every one of those modules, so they were their own little champions to vet it out, see if they can use it. And that was a fun project to be a part of as far as implementing new technologies, because it's a super team. We're still in the middle of it. Even very great leaders within our company tasked with focusing on individual things, and then we all come together and explain why we can or cannot use it. So far we're going to use all of them, but now rolling it out to the rest of our project management and executive team is going to be much easier, because it's not me against the world now. It's this really great team, and we're all pushing this portion of the technology throughout the company together. So that's that. I had to explain it as a shop, field, BDC, and then project management, because they're all a little different when we're talking about it.
Yeah, I actually love the breakdown of how you did that. Yeah. I think also it's very interesting how on one hand you're describing a bit even of a grassroots movement, right, where people are getting interested in new things that are going on in the company. They have like this sort of buy-in in terms of, oh, what are you doing? Teach me, show me how it's done. You guys understand, you guys need to build a training capability around that, and even sending people to workshops. And then another portion of people who have a hard time with it and being able to break the tough news in the sense that things are changing, right? On the other hand, still have those one-on-ones, those training sessions, maybe people being a little bit more stubborn, right? But helping them understand that they're actually doing something that's important, that's aligned with the vision, a greater vision the company has, and that they're going to be an important catalyst in helping lead that change. And then another totally different approach, which is going from the top down, right? Management, this is going to be a tough one, I'm calling the reins in, let's do it this way, and then like rolling it out. But this time you're dealing with like the project managers, which is a much tougher crowd to deal with, right? So
I'm the biggest hybrid person in this role ever, because you mentioned bottom up, top down. Yeah, it depends on what we're focusing on at the time. Definitely, I think both approaches can work. You just have to identify what's going to work best. And like you said, the other side, it was definitely top down.
Yeah, so I actually really, it's just funny, but definitely, right? And I think that's kind of where you could see you also being able to do such a commendable job, right? Is being able to choose and pick when to use what tactic and strategy. And I think and I think that's powerful. And I find it to be a conversation I have a lot with people who are actually being able to move a needle within the construction companies, which is notoriously hard to do. So, so amazing. I think the next question that we ask is kind of what from your experience, has been, I always like to go back to a project if possible, because that's the best, like an actual like experience relating to a construction project. But what was the biggest hurdles you've come across while in terms of a project you guys done, or in general in adopting the technology?
Yeah, so buy-in is always one of the largest hurdles, right? Because if people don't believe in the software, they're not going to use it. Training and teaching, if they don't know how to use the software, they're not going to use it. If they're uncomfortable with it, they're not going to use it. So, I mean, those two would be like the biggest hurdles. If I was to talk about examples, I just got done talking about the team of project managers that we use. And for a specific, we're launching into Autodesk Build right now. Getting that team together to focus on each one of those modules. Up until that happened recently, I was doing more of a bottom up approach, right? And so we had to just like hit pause, like, okay, we need to think about this a different way, because like you said, that needle just wasn't moving on their side. Okay, so we identified that, and then came up with a different approach and started attacking it with specific teams, right? And that is definitely getting the needle moving a lot more, to the point where we might be developing some standards and approaches for our entire project management team, depending on which module we're focusing on at the time, whether it's submittals, RFIs, things like that, issue sheets. So that's one of them. The training portion. So let's go to our field, for example. Hermanson's been around a long time. We have this other software called Stratus that we leverage, and we asked our field and shop to completely change how they order material, how they deliver, how they schedule deliveries, and things like that. These are big ticket items. This is what we do as a culture at Hermanson. We build duct and pipe, we get it delivered, we fabricate it, and we hang it. So now, in the matter of a year, 2 years, we completely changed what we've been doing the last 30 years. um, into as far as major projects, people that are going to utilize this upfront. So developing those processes and workflows and then teaching them and getting buy-in, that was the biggest hurdle. But also satisfying at the same time. Because what starts happening is, like I said, if this technology is starting to make change for your company, change for the better, and people are buying into the things that you're developing, and now they're invested in because they're helping develop as well, it's a snowball effect. So, hey, Bob, man, I know you're not using it yet, but on the next one, you're gonna, hey, this is great. Getting that, what do I want to say, reputation? Getting your technology's reputation by the end users in a positive light. That was one of the biggest hurdles, but also, one of the greatest successes that we've had so far.
Yeah, that's great. So I really like the concept of getting the reputation of the technology right, getting it right, and for that implementer, right, for that person who's at the end of the day supposed to implement, right, that's critical, and also like you being able to say like, yeah, I changed what we've been doing for 30 years. It took time, but we just changed the way that we've been doing that, and it's yielding results. And I think that's that's a very a powerful thing to be able to say. There's always something I'd love to ask is there's always a misconception of how long change takes. Like, so you described a process taking 2 years, right? So yeah. How important or would you say the patience factor is when embarking on innovating or adopting a new technology?
Yeah, you definitely have to have a lot of patience with it, but I'm kind of, and I'm a little notorious for this. I kind of like, we got to go, and we got to go now, because I don't want this to be a 10-year process. By the end of the year, every new project is going to be moving forward, that's the pace that I set. Every new project moving forward will be on this platform. We don't want to change existing things for projects that are getting cleaned up, but I want to go now. So getting that buy-in though, right? Developing those processes and workflows, getting guys that, can jump into the software, and used to just be a pain in the butt for them, to look at a print, do takeoff and material orders and things like that. And now I'm showing them how to do, a 3-day process in a matter of 10 minutes. That gets a lot of buzz, that gets a lot of excitement, by the end users. But that patience still needs to happen, right? So like I said, I'm notorious for like, we're going now. But there's a lot of things that you have to, consider. You gotta work with, your IT department. They're gonna really care about security, how we're gonna manage users, logins, potentially SSO, things like that. Working with different departments like that, that's where you got to have the patience, right? Like, no, give me a computer now. And they're going to say, hold on, how are we protecting all of this? You know what I mean? So, yeah, you definitely have to have a lot of patience, but you don't want to, I've seen some people in my position operate in I've been here for 5 years. What have you done? We need to do something. We need to change the culture. Otherwise, what are we doing? Just talking? Like, I'll post a podcast on LinkedIn, and I'm not here to toot my own horn. I'm just telling a story of what we're actually doing, not what we should be doing. What we should be doing better be what we're actually doing. And if not, we're moving at 100 miles an hour. If I'm the guy, leading the charge there. So, yeah. I don't know if I answered your question, but
no, you definitely did, and I love it. Okay. I mean, it's like on one hand, right, you're describing the sense of patience with the whole process, with getting people on board. On the other, there's a sense of urgency to actually implement and see results, for the good or the bad. It's about getting something moving, seeing the results, having KPIs and objectives at the end of the year, right, and seeing things happen, right. And I think that is, in general, when you look at the tech industry, that's the that is a reputation that people who are successfully involved in the adoption of technology or in creating technology is that they move very quickly. They make mistakes, but they move quickly. And that tolerance and appetite, right, for trying new things and looking at it obviously in a risk managed manner, right, is something that is going to be prevalent for, I think, people who are succeeding in technology. But what I love about it is there's a lot of people who don't realize that, right? And I think and also 2 years is not, I mean, it's fast for the change, the type of change that you manage to cause at the end, but it's a process, right? It's not overnight. And so maybe one of the things I get the most from when I'm talking to some construction companies is, we want to do this. We want, I would say, maximum amount of features in minimal amount of time, yet without that adaptability or without that even knowledge of what it takes to adopt one feature, right? So I don't know if you've encountered that or not, but maybe you could help shed light a little bit about, what does that process in terms of that patience that's required, what does that look like? Before, I think you gave a great example of you wanting not to have reliancy on other technologies. Right. And when you create that base of knowledge within the company, and then afterwards, okay, I'll build up on that. Right. So how was your experience in terms of also the technology itself? Like, okay, you could adopt one feature and then adopt more features, but first take on one little thing. I don't know if it resonates with you, but I'd like to hear what your approach would be, to taking on, technology in a process or staged manner.
Okay. Yeah. So, in that, I'm trying to think of some good examples here. So, I mean, it's all a staged manner, right? Because each process, like, for example, I'm just going to talk in examples. When we rolled out, and I'm talking about that technology that we're rolling out to the shop. This is actually, I'm dealing with it today, literally last Friday. I'm rolling out a new wave of stuff, potentially, right? Because it's got to work. So we're going to beta test it. I literally have switched like 3 examples in a matter of like 10 seconds. The technology with the shop and how our VDC team, we draw all of our stuff in 3D, we get it coordinated, everything. There's hundreds of $1,000s invested in getting that right. Now it needs to go communicate to the shop so we can order the material, build it, fabricate from it, do it all paperless, right? Before we got to that, it started just with a group of people in a giant conference room, and I'm explaining to them, and this is after the investment, right? These are all big dollars investing into these technologies. So the company is looking at me and my team and our team to push it through. But it started with, this is technology A. This is what it can do. We have operating in a manner of emails and Excel and just post-it notes on top of it, a wall for ordering. This is what it can do. This is a digital platform now for us to host. What should it look like? This is how I see it should look like, because there's industry experience that leads up to a lot of this evolvement and adaptation, right? That's a big key there. Having somebody understand the industry and also push technology, that's a big deal. But it started out like, they're like, what is this? This is the website you go to. This is what it can do. What it would be cool if we could order and put a delivery date on a column here, and then have the foreman be the ones that would plug it in. Okay, I can make that happen. We can make that happen. That's what we're going to do. Is that what you want to do, superintendents? Yep. Everybody? Okay. Stage 1, delivery date. The most simple thing ever, but it was still the first time a single platform connected the shop, connected the field, and connected our VDC team all to a single location, just for simple delivery date, right? It's phase 1. Fast forward to all that other stuff that I was talking about, having them package and communicate with machines and equipment, things like that. One of the things I'm super proud of is that our plumbing and piping fab is completely paperless now. They do all their prefabrication work directly from the models, a lot of teaching and development. For sheet metal side, and I'm a sheet metal worker, right? So how's that for a thing? They've still been relying on PDFs, paper, so they can get it. And so the difference between the two trades is we have like 5 or 6 people on our shop doing prefabrication work. We don't have, so they need to be able to print paper out and hand it out to the users so they can go and build what they need to build. We don't have 5 independent PCs out there for everybody to look at an independent model assembly view. You know what I mean? And there's limitations. So there's shop space. We don't have this massive place where we can just, it would be cool, but we just don't. So even last week I was getting one of our shop assembly guys on the girls on the sheet metal side, Angel, trained up on Stratus on how to create assemblies and create spools and create this within this digital environment, this 3D world. And my approach there was, okay, if I get more people down there, boots on the ground, trained up, they can help champion this idea that this piece of paper is just not needed. We still have a problem though, right? Like, she has bought into it. She's like, I don't see why we couldn't operate this way. We don't need PDFs, great. But now how do we can't put 6 PCs down there. So I started questioning, right? Like, on our most busy day, how many people do we have working in that department at one time? 6? Okay. Let's test this. I'm gonna put an iPad in your hand. Okay. Surface Pro, iPad, whatever. Pick your favorite. We're going with iPad. And through some other testing at our other shops, we have shops up and down between Oregon and Washington. A basic iPad functioned okay, so now I'm going to test out an iPad Pro, bigger screen, things like that. We're going to put it in their hands, protect it, right, and see if we get all the assemblies and all the dimensions and everything done in 3D, where they just have to click a button and it opens up their assembly viewer, and they can see everything and rotate the model. Can you function this way? She's thinking they can. I'm going to say, okay, let's beta test this out. Another staged thing. So next week should be pretty exciting. We're going to put the iPad in her hand. And I guess that's kind of like a staged approach. Super long answer to your questions. I'm sorry, but I can only speak in examples, right? So
no, perfect. That's all we want.
Yeah, and then went from we're all sitting in a group together and we're just talking about how to edit a text field on a dashboard that changes the delivery screen to fast forward now, hopefully the final feather to go completely paperless in our shop starts happening next week. Once they start testing, we got to see if it's durable enough, if the guys can. Now I got to go down in the shop and she's going to help champion it because she's, taking the lead on it as well, but getting them comfortable. Can you use this instead of paper? If we do, that's going to save 5-6 minutes. An assembly from one of our VDC members printing it on paper. There's thousands of these on a project. We're talking big bucks saved, and also kind of, championing that net zero, no paper. Help. There's so many angles and sides to it, but it definitely, and that's something we do believe in, is that net zero approach as well. So a little bit less paper being used. So anyways, that's
how long would you say it's been the effort to go paperless? How long do you say that process has been taking?
I mean, as long as these stories that I'm telling you, that this has been it, because we've always been PDF based and things like that. And I'm also taking it extra, right? Like, you can be paperless. You can set up Bluebeam or Adobe on a PC out in the shop, and they can double click the PDF and just look at it on the screen and not actually have to physically paint it. I wanted to go one step further and even eliminate the PDF. Look at these changes directly from the 3D model. Mm-hmm. This is going to give you up-to-date information. PDF is a timestamp in history, right? If that's something changed along the line, and you know construction, you're in this world, things change every day. I'm looking at a sheet that was generated 2 weeks ago. there's a chance that it's not the same today. If you're looking directly at the model and seeing the changes generated as soon as yesterday, you're going to be more accurate. You're going to be leaner. You're going to have less waste out, even out in the field. Again, at zero, 30% of the world's waste comes from construction. So if we're helping eliminate that by keeping those up-to-date changes, that's just like a hidden feather in my cap. I don't really champion it, but it's the truth. We're getting our things done in a much leaner fashion and more accurate with much less waste and no paper, not even PDFs. Even though like I said, you don't have to print a PDF to be paperless. But
because we're running towards the end, and we always end with asking, where do you see the future going in terms of the technology, or what would you say is like the most promising, or even something that you would recommend innovators, right? Who are a big part of the people who listen to this podcast, people who are inspired by the podcast and think, okay, what kind of technology, what's the next best thing? What would you inspire these people to be thinking about in terms of solutions, in terms of also where your vision is for the industry going in terms of the technology?
Well, so technology is such a wide brush, right? And through my platform, I've gotten to meet a lot of people throughout at least the US here that are in similar roles. It's such a wide brush, right? If you're trying to adapt and implement technology, you have to do your research, and then you have to get buy-in from your end users, right? Technology, like I said, it's a super wide brush. But if you're innovating and pushing it, like in the construction tech industry, do what makes sense for your company, whether it's an Autodesk product, Procore, whatever. I know your investors are going to want to hear those two key things. You have to, the platform is important, but how you roll it out, how you implement it, how you get buy-in from your end users is even more important, because they're not going to use it. It's only gonna matter if the technology is making a difference for your company. If it's not making a difference and we're just sitting here talking about it, then there's a problem. As far as the future goes, mobile devices, right? I talk about paperless workflows and things like that. Being able to access, a lot of construction these days is model based, but even if it's not, how you access information for ordering and things like that. Ease of access to cloud-based. Obviously, that's a huge one now. I bet you assume a lot of people are cloud-based technology as well. And then also getting everybody under a single platform or very limited platforms. You don't want like 10 pieces of technology, 15 pieces all floating out there. If you have giant groups of people, the more everybody's under a single umbrella or just one or two different umbrellas, the better. I guess that's what I have for that.
Awesome. Matt, thanks a lot, man. It was a really great pleasure having you on the podcast. And I'm looking forward to hearing this together. And also, hopefully we'll even catch up again in the future, and who knows?
Awesome.
I'm sure there'll be more to talk about.
Cool.
Anyways,
all right.
Thank you very much for participating. Really appreciate it. And I think the insights are very valuable. And for all those who are listening, leave comments in the bottom. Leave comments, questions, whatever you guys want. We'll forward them also to Matt. We'll try answering them. Give us some more ideas for more topics you guys are interested in. And hopefully you guys found this pragmatic and relevant. And it was a great pleasure having you, Matt.
All right. Thank you.